Chapter 3 of The Metal Monster. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by Roger Moline. The Metal Monster by Abraham Merritt. Chapter 3. Ruth Ventnor. The dawn, streaming into the niche, awakened us. A covey of partridges, venturing too close, yielded 3 to our guns. We breakfasted well, and a little later were pushing on down the cleft. Its descent, though gradual, was continuous, and therefore I was not surprised when soon we began to come upon evidences of semi-tropical vegetation. Giant rhododendrons and tree ferns gave way to occasional clumps of stately kopek and clumps of the hardier bamboos. We added a few snowcocks to our larder, although they were out of their habitat, flying down into the gorge from their peaks and tablelands for some choice tidbit. All that day we marched on, and when at night we made camp, sleep came to us quickly and overmastering. An hour after dawn we were on our way. A brief stop we made for lunch, pressed forward. It was close to 2 when we caught the first sight of the ruins. The soaring, verdure-clad walls of the canyon had long been steadily marching closer. Above, between their rims, the wide ribbon of sky was like a fantastically shored river, shimmering, dazzling, every cove and headland edged with an opalescent glimmering as of shining, pearly beaches. And as though we were sinking in that sky stream's depths, its light kept lessening, darkening imperceptibly with luminous shadows of ghostly beryl, drifting veils of pellucid aquamarine, limpid mists of glaucous chrysolite. Fainter, more crepuscular became the light, yet never losing its crystalline quality. Now the high overhead river was but a brook, became a thread. Abruptly it vanished. We passed into a tunnel, fern-walled, fern-roofed, garlanded with tawny orchids, gay with carmine fungus and golden moss. We stepped out into a blaze of sunlight. Before us lay a wide green bowl held in the hands of the clustered hills, shallow, circular as though, while plastic still, the thumb of God had run round its rim, shaping it. Around it the peaks crowded, craning their lofty heads to peer within. It was about a mile in its diameter, this hollow, as my gaze then measured it. It had 3 openings. One that lay like a crack in the northeast slope, another the tunnel mouth through which we had come. The third lifted itself out of the bowl, creeping up the precipitous bare scarp of the western barrier straight to the north, clinging to the ochreous rock up and up, until it vanished around a far distant shoulder. It was a wide and bulwarked road, a road that spoke as clearly as though it had tongue of human hands, which had cut it there in the mountain's breast. An ancient road, weary beyond belief, beneath the tread of uncounted years. From the hollow the blind soul of loneliness groped out to greet us. Never had I felt such loneliness as that which lapped the lip of the verdant bowl. It was tangible, as though it had been poured from some reservoir of misery, a pool of despair. Half the width of the valley away the ruins began. Weirdly were they its visible expression. They huddled in 2 bent rows to the bottom. They crouched in a wide cluster against the cliffs. From the cluster a curving row of them ran along the southern crest of the hollow. A flight of shattered cyclopean steps lifted to a ledge, and here a crumbling fortress stood. Irresistibly did the ruins seem a colossal hag, flung prone, lying listlessly, helplessly, against the barrier's base. The huddled lower ranks were the legs, the cluster the body, the upper row an outflung arm, and above the neck of the stairway the ancient fortress, rounded and with two huge ragged apertures in its northern front, was an aged, bleached and withered head staring, watching. I looked at Drake. The spell of the bowl was heavy upon him, his face drawn. The Chinaman and Tibetan were murmuring, terror written large upon them. "A hell of a joint!" Drake turned to me, a shadow of a grin lightening the distress on his face. "But I'd rather chance it than go back. What do you say?" I nodded, curiosity mastering my oppression. We stepped over the rim, rifles on the alert. Close behind us crowded the two servants and the ponies. The vale was shallow, as I have said. We trod the fragments of an olden approach to the green tunnel, so the descent was not difficult. Here and there, beside the path, upreared huge broken blocks. On them I thought I could see faint tracings, as of carvings, now a suggestion of gaping, arrow-fanged dragon jaws, now the outline of a scaled body, a hint of enormous, bat-like wings. Now we had reached the first of the crumbling piles that stretched down into the valley's center. Half fainting, I fell against Drake, clutching to him for support. A stream of utter hopelessness was racing upon us, swirling and eddying around us, reaching to our hearts with ghostly fingers dripping with despair. From every shattered heap it seemed to pour, rushing down the road upon us like a torrent, engulfing us, submerging, drowning. Unseen it was, yet tangible as water. It sapped the life from every nerve. Weariness filled me, a desire to drop upon the stones, to be rolled away, to die. I felt Drake's body quivering even as mine, knew that he was drawing upon every reserve of strength. "Steady," he muttered. "Steady." The Tibetan shrieked and fled, the ponies scrambling after him. Dimly I remembered that mine carried precious specimens. A surge of anger passed, beating back the anguish. I heard a sob from Chu Ming, saw him drop. Drake stopped, drew him to his feet. We placed him between us, thrust each an arm through his own. Then, like swimmers, heads bent, we pushed on, buffeting that inexplicable, invisible flood. As the path rose, its force lessened, my vitality grew, and the terrible desire to yield and be swept away waned. Now we had reached the foot of the Cyclopean stairs, now we were half up them. And now, as we struggled out upon the ledge on which the watching fortress stood, the clutching stream shoaled swiftly, the shoal became safe, dry land, and the cheated, unseen maelstrom swirled harmlessly beneath us. We stood erect, gasping for breath, again like swimmers who have fought their utmost and barely, so barely, won. There was an almost imperceptible movement at the side of the ruined portal. Out darted a girl. A rifle dropped from her hands. Straight she sped toward me. And as she ran, I recognized her. Ruth Ventnor! The flying figure reached me, threw soft arms around my neck, was weeping in relieved gladness on my shoulder. "Ruth!" I cried. "What on earth are you doing here?" "Walter!" she sobbed. "Walter Goodwin! Oh, thank God! Thank God!" She drew herself from my arms, catching her breath, laughed shakily. I took swift stock of her. Save for fears upon her, she was the same Ruth I had known 3 years before; wide, deep blue eyes that were now all seriousness, now sparkling wells of mischief.